Welcome back to another Rest Eat Move podcast. Chris is in the hot seat today. We're going to do a little long form podcast. And one of the subjects, and the subject we're talking about today is movement for basically the over 50 crowd. As many of you know, I'm in that category. I'm 67 years old. But this is kind of stemmed from many conversations I've had in the last 6 months or so. And then people are watching different things, and my friends and colleagues and whatever. And we get in these conversations about movement. And then we hear about, again, you don't want to feel like your grandparents here, but you hear people start talking about all their ailments. My knee bothers me, my neck, my back, the list goes on and on. And so sometimes I don't want to be the food or exercise police, but sometimes I start asking better questions about, so tell me, how do you address that? What do you do differently? And that's the conversation today, is that, again, this can work for anybody, any age, but it's going to be geared for basically a little bit of the older crowd. So, again, if you have people in your world that you want to share this with, we want you to help, get this out there. Because, as you know, we at Ontario Living, the three pillars are rest, eat, and move. And we kind of go in that order. And today is going to be basically all about movement. So I want to think about, as we start getting into this, is that I want to get a little more specific. So again, this is a podcast. Many of you might be watching this, but I'll try to explain a couple different things. This is on our website. It's in the Rest, Eat, Move book. We have lots of videos. So if you have any questions, you can just go right to ontaroliving.com and send us a question or email, or maybe you want to we'll pick up the phone and talk with you. But before I dive in, that I want everybody to understand that the human bodies, I've been doing this a long time, the human body has an amazing ability to heal and self-correct with intelligent movement. Not just movement. We're going to talk about more intelligent movement. You can get away with anything when you're in your 20s, your 30s, but as time goes on, you have to be a little smarter about how you're training and what your goals are. So I want to really make sure that's crystal clear. The human body is incredible in its ability to heal and self-correct with intelligent movement. And before I dive in, I want to kind of bring this in with some questions for you. We're all about questions and curiosity, but this is the beginning of my Rest, Eat, Move book. But this really, I think, goes well with this conversation today. So before we jump into the how, I really want to get into the why, and that's going to be your health begins in your mind. So here's a couple questions for you to think about. Number one, what is your vision for your future? Sometimes, we always ask the question, we've done podcasts on aging, but I want you to really think about that. We're talking about this the other day. I'm 67. In 10 years, I'll be 77. My daughter, Kristen, had a baby girl, and I started doing the math on that. When she's 20, basically, I'll be 87. So, it's not that far away. But at the same time, what do I want to do when I'm 87 or 77 or 97, whatever it might be? And that's what I want you to think about at the very beginning. What is the future? What's your vision for your future? Number two, does your health matter to you? Hopefully you're listening to this podcast that your health does matter to you. Because if it doesn't matter, we can just kind of talk about something else. Number three, are you thriving or just surviving? This is where we'll get into beliefs in a second here, but that's the question I always ask my clients. Are you thriving right now, or are you just surviving? We talk about blood work, we talk about movement. What is it? Number four, on a 1 to 10 scale, how ready are you to make a change? And some people, I want to assess that because, again, instead of giving you 9,000 things to think about, maybe we just think about one, because I'm not quite all in. And maybe you're at a 5 out of 1 to 10 scale, or maybe you're at a 7, or maybe you're a 10. I'm ready. So I always want to assess that to myself and anything in my life, but also with my clients and people that we talk to, is I want to know where you're at. And then from there, what has held you back in the past? I think we all can go back in the past and learn from the past. What's held you back? And then we get into a little bit more specific. What are the top 3 things you want? Get really specific about that. What do I want? Chris, I'd like to have a better night of sleep. Well, movement's going to help you sleep better. I really like to be able to get it on and off the floor. Okay. Some of you are like, well, okay, well, that's something I'm interested in. But I want you to really think about that. What are your top 3 things you want in the movement space we're going to discuss today? And with that comes your whys. That's the jet fuel for change. Why? Why do you want to change? What do you want to change? And again, once you find a why that's outside of you, everything starts to take off. So again, why could be internal, why could be external. And then what are some of your current beliefs that are holding you back? Many people I still talk to, I'm just too old for that. Too old for what? I'm not in shape. I can't start movement. I'm just not healthy, and that ship sailed. No, not necessarily. Or many people don't believe it's going to work. If you knew with 100% conviction that these few things that we're going to talk about today could really help change your life in a great way, are you in? So when people have that true conviction that I know this is going to work, many of you have heard this before, but I've competed in 10 bodybuilding contests over the years. And when I first got in that space, I didn't really understand. I was dabbling. I didn't know if it was going to work or not. But as time went on, I knew if I followed the process, at about week 5, everything starts to change. And I knew 100% conviction that I just followed the process, and it worked every time. But if I didn't really truly believe that, I would have probably waffled. And so many people I've worked with over the years, they didn't quite believe, and so they start waffling. And I'm going to start this, and I'm going to do that. No, 100% conviction. If you believe it will work, just stay on the course. And last but not least, what do you want the aging process to look like? And that's interesting. Sometimes we'll get into that a little bit, but those are some of the questions I want to beginning. All right, so number 2, we're going to talk a little bit about the benefits. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I think it can reassess and maybe inspire you a little bit to go, wow, I didn't know that. But we all know this, and I've talked about this 100 times. But the benefits of movement are incredible. And if you could put movement in a pill bottle, it'd be the most prescribed medication in the world. With all the medications we're seeing today, Ozempic, cholesterol medication, the list goes on. Imagine if you could put movement in a pill bottle and everybody would prescribe it. Mental health, physical health, sleep, the list goes on and on. So that's the beginning. But the big ones I want to think about at the very beginning is this. I'm going to move better. I want to move better. Okay, there you go. I want to feel better. We always say you have the power to feel your best. I truly want to feel. And some people don't really know how good they could feel. One of the things that I love about movement is, some days in the process, you're kind of like, I just don't feel like it today. But I always tell myself, when I'm done, the amazing benefits is how I'm going to feel. And it's like magic every time. You take a shower, you've moved your body, you feel fantastic. And then from there, which we're kind of leading into that, is people ask me all the time, you always bring this up about washing your brain. What is that? It's what it does for your mind. So when you think about movement, the biggest benefit, in my opinion, as an exercise physiologist, is not about the body per se. It's about what it does for my mind. It washes my brain. It creates that flow state. As my daughter Kristen talks about flow state, amazing ideas come in. Why is that? Because your mind is becoming calm. Once you calm the mind, relax the body, amazing things start to happen. You think better, you think differently, your resiliency goes way up. So I always talk about that I think we don't talk about this enough, that it's not always about bigger biceps or running faster, jumping higher, or whatever it might be. We'll get into that a little bit today. But the big thing is it helps to balance the nervous system, because when the nervous system is not in balance, then everything kind of goes haywire. So that's really, truly, my opinion, is that movement washes my brain. It helps me balance that nervous system, which is the stress button, and it creates that resiliency. Things don't bother me as much when I can fuel and sleep and move. When I put that all together, I'm pretty good. So that's where we need to spend a little time on that washing the brain, in my opinion, is the number one benefit. And then we get into better health. We'll get into some of that. Gut health. Again, back to the nervous system. When you have a balanced nervous system, you have better gut health. Heart, lungs, bone health, stresses we just talked about, better sleep, better mental health, better immune function. So the list goes on and on. Aging vibrantly. How about stronger, more strength? Greater mobility, better balance. I think a lot of people in my camp, me too, is I want to have better mobility and better balance, because balance is strength, strength is balance. And then as we move in here, we got to bring the enjoyment piece in. I can't say this enough. I see so many people, it's so rigid, it's no fun. We need to bring that fun, that play, that enjoyment back in to movement. And again, I'll hit that as we go today, but that's kind of the beginning. And then really we're training for life. So again, as I mentioned earlier, research is staggering. I don't need to go down that rabbit hole at all, but movement is compound interest. I can't say it enough. Hopefully by the end of this conversation today, you're going to realize that I don't have to do everything overnight. I'm just going to do this consistently. It's like investing our money. So if we're doing that on a consistent basis, that's the compound interest working for you, and the progressions can be incredible. So again, I always say to myself, I want to get to X, Y, Z. I need to start slowly and build on that, and that's the compound interest. All right, so from there, so now we're diving into the process. And the process begins with what holds people back. So a couple things, and I've written this many times before, but just make a note to this before we dive into the how, is that people value their health, but they believe they need to do X amount of work to do that. It's overwhelming sometimes. So values and beliefs, I think, what holds many people back. Many people want to focus on the future, like I want to lose weight or whatever, but they kind of forget about the now. It's the process during the now, experiencing how the body feels during the movement. I think sometimes we don't think about that. If I just get my 3 sets of 8 reps in, or I do my cardio or do whatever, understanding how do you enjoy the process, that's kind of a skill. And then knowledge. People are not sure what to do. I truly believe there's lots of lack of knowledge out there. There's so much information that's overloaded, but knowledge is a big one. Time. I don't have enough time. Well, I'm here to tell you it's compound interest. You don't have to spend a lot of time. You just need to do it consistently. And then, as I just mentioned, we need to bring the fun and enjoyment back. How do you make your movement plan more fun and enjoyable? This is a critical piece that I'll keep hitting over and over and over. And then the last piece here is training for something. I'm a huge fan of that. Put a bogey out there. What am I training for? Is it you're going to be your first 5K, a triathlon, hiking in the Grand Canyons, playing with your grandkids, snow skiing, water skiing, whatever it might be, pickleball, paddleball, whatever you love to do, basically you're training for something. You know, we were talking about this yesterday. Pickleball has gone crazy in our country today. I love pickleball. A lot of my friends like it, starting to get into it. But I was thinking, what if you just, and again, they're out there, but at this large health club that we're at, imagine if you had a pickleball training program, because many of the people are over 50 playing pickleball, but I want to play better. Well, how do I play better? Well, I need to move better. So again, you could get real specific on what you're actually doing for training for that pickleball or whatever activities you love. All right, so now we're going to get into a little bit more of, we're going to get into the basically how to get this going. So the first thing on the how is you have to have self-awareness. Here comes the assessment. So when I work with people, I had a gentleman in yesterday that I was training, first time, we got to create some assessment. And what that does, it creates self-awareness for the person. So one of the things I try to do many times on a regular basis, I want them to rate their fitness level before we do anything. On a 1 to 10 scale, I talk that, are you a beginner? Are you intermediate? Where are you? So rate yourself right now. Are you a beginner, intermediate, advanced, mover, whatever it might be? And then ask another question. What could be missing in your current movement plan if you're a long-time exerciser? That's interesting. What could possibly be missing? So many times I'll go over and see Walt at the trainer studio or Gabe, and what I'll realize very quickly is that they'll open my eyes up that maybe I need to add this or that, or maybe I'll see a golf pro or whatever it might be, that assessment at the very beginning. So that's where we want to begin. Do you have any injuries or limitations? Sometimes people like, I don't really have an injury, and then I'll have them raise their arms overhead, and they're like, oh, yeah, my shoulders bother me, or this or that. But it doesn't really bother them until they get outside of that little space. So that's where we're starting to do that. Can you touch your toes? Can you put your socks on? Can you put your socks on standing on one leg? Can you put one sock on? That's interesting. Can you get on the floor? It's amazing. That's a question I ask. Many of you are going, well, of course I get on the floor. Well, as we age, it's not so easy. When I work with a lot of seniors much older than me, that's what we work on all the time is like, can you get on the floor? Can you get on the floor without putting your hands on the floor? Can you get off the floor without putting your hands on the floor? We don't get crazy with this. We just make it simple. Can you get on the floor or off the floor without using your hands? That's a great assessment. Can you stand on one leg? What's your balance like? Can you do a yoga pose called Warrior 3? Can you do Warrior 3 and a half moon? Can you do Dancer? These are just some basic poses. Can you walk across the room, one with the high knees? So when you do a high knee walk, one knee comes way up. Can you pause and hold that? And you walk slowly across the room, because when you take that momentum out, you have to work on that strength and that balance. So again, as we age, it's not about more bone health for many seniors. It's about them not falling because they have better balance. I'm in for that. So I think balance is the big one, assessing your balance. Can you do that? And then from there, can you hang from a bar? You know, I had a gentleman, as I mentioned, go in there, and we were working on shoulder mobility, and one of the things I want him to do is I want you to hang from a bar, and you're supported. So can you, again, we talk about grip strength and all of this goes on, but one of the things greatest about that, it's good for your spine, it's good for your strength, but hanging from a bar, and again, you don't need to do this long, but maybe you start out, can you raise your arms overhead and hold on to the bar, being supported, so your feet are on the ground, and then eventually, maybe you're going to try to take your feet off the ground and you're going to hold it for 5 to 10 seconds. We don't need to do this crazy where we're holding this thing for 2 or 3 or 4 minutes. We just need to get off. Can you do that? And I've seen amazing amount of my clients, they start out where they're supported, and eventually they're doing 5 to 10 seconds, and they maybe work up to 15 to 30 seconds. And they're so proud because now they have that strength to do that. You know, it's interesting. Sometimes we'll be up north and we'll go over to the playground with, you know, the grandkids, and there are the monkey bars, and they're staring me right in the eye. And I've thought to myself, one day I'm in there, and when I was a kid, we were at North School, when I was in grade school, and then we went over to Luton School, we would fly across those monkey bars, one hand after another. So I get on these monkey bars, and I start doing it. I'm like, holy cow, I can barely do this. It really woke me up, like, do I not have this grip strength? Do I not have the arm strength? What don't I have? But now it kind of hit me like I would have never known that. So now I'm kind of working on more of that where I can actually go to a monkey bar and go one hand after another. I am not good at it, but boy, oh boy, that really woke me up. The other thing too is, you know, I love to ski. Snow ski's coming. Love to snow ski. But I also like to water ski. So now we're at Douglas Lake, and so now we're water skiing regularly, and I water ski probably 3 times a week. But I don't really ever try to get up on one. I can get up on one ski, but I'm smart enough now, like, why would I want to tweak my hamstring getting out of the water? It's just different. I'm just a little smarter about that. So I just drop a ski, no big deal, put my ego put it away, because again, I could get up on one, but I'm not going to try to get up on one. So this is when we're starting to be a little bit smarter about that self-awareness. And then last couple here is, can you do a modified push-up correctly? Can you do a body weight squat? You know, as I mentioned, can you hang from the bar? But everybody's got blind spots. And so one of the things we try to do when we're doing one-on-one training, or we're talking right now in the podcast, is just create this awareness that maybe I do have a blind spot. That's something I want to work on. It's not about being perfect. Again, I'm always trying to find my blind spots, and sometimes they hit me right in the forehead very easily. But those are a couple things at the very beginning, is that self-awareness piece. So write that down. As I begin, I want to have a little bit more self-awareness. What do I want? What I can't do? But getting on and off the floor, hanging from the bar, those are two big ones right away. And then from there, we go into the buckets. And now we're going to dive into the specific buckets. And the first bucket's going to be your posture, followed by VO2 max. That's your cardio. So again, don't worry about VO2 max, but your cardio, your heart and your lungs. Your balance, mobility, flexibility, strength. So these are your buckets we're going to address. And then we move into functionality. We call it, back in the day, we talk about front yard, backyard, functional movements. So again, when I'm up in northern Michigan, I have to kind of train to do stuff because I'm hauling stuff up the stairs, I'm chopping wood, I have a chainsaw, I have a wood splitter, the list goes on, but you want to be confident that you can move without hurting yourself. And I remember the first couple of times I was doing some of these things, I'm like, holy cow, I train all the time and my body is a mess. Well, I wasn't doing a lot of the stuff, so there's a couple blind spots there. All right, so now we're going to dive into the how. So if you want to just make notes here, I'll summarize at the very end. Where do you begin? I'm going to make this really simple today. Number one is just starting with your posture. So if I sat down with you first time, we did some assessments, getting on the floor, doing whatever, but one of the assessments I'm going to do is your standing wall posture. So go against the wall. I do this every single day, usually 2 or 3 or 4 times a day. So you get against the wall, you put your heels against the wall, your rear end, your shoulders, and your head. And can you line that all up without tilting your head? So that's called just a standing posture. And again, it's shocking sometimes when I'm traveling and I'll do this in the airport and I'll find a pillar and I'll get against the wall and I'm like, holy cow, is my back tight or my neck's tight? So that's a big deal right away, standing posture. Number 2, if you want to make this simple, you take both of your arms while you're against the wall, you put your arms right out to the side. So put your arms straight out to the side and your palms face out. This is such an easy thing because now we're opening up the rib cage and now we're working on your alignment. And then I bring my hands back to center and I bring them back out. And I usually do that 2 or 3 times. So again, it's an easy way. Chris, my shoulders bother me. For most people, that's not going to bother you at all, and it's an easy tool. Then we move up. Now we take the arms and we raise them overhead. Now the goal of raising the arms overhead while you're against the wall is to reach up. So the goal is to reach up, not back. And the goal is to keep your arms nice and straight. So if you can't keep your arms straight while you reach up, move your arms a little bit wider out to the side, but the goal is to straighten that out. And then as you get more comfortable with this, they'll not only reach up, but your thumbs go back. So the palms face in, so palms of your hands face in, you reach straight up and your thumbs go back. And you bring your hands down, you do that 2 or 3 times. That will show a lot of your mobility of your shoulder girdle, of your back, the list goes on. But you're still keeping your heels, your rear end, your shoulders against the wall, and your head ideally. And if you can't do that, don't worry about it at the very beginning. You're just starting out with that. So that's your standing with your back against the wall. All right, so now we're going to turn right around. Now we're going to do a standing posture where you're facing the wall. And this is so easy for everybody. So you take your toes against the wall, you take your chest, bring it against the wall, almost touch your nose to the wall, and then you raise your arms straight up. And what you're going to find right away that doesn't bother most people because now their back's not involved too much. And it's an easy way to create this confidence that, okay, I can do this. And then from there, after I've done that, then I'm going to do a standing up dog, down dog. So now, if you've never done a yoga pose where you're on the floor, this is on the wall. So all I do is I slide my hands down to chest height, keep my arms completely straight. So make sure you keep your arms straight. And I slide my legs away from the wall, and I stick my rear end back as far as you can. So you should have a nice, basically a slight curve in your lower back that it's kind of an extension. You stick your rear end back, and you keep your arms straight, and you put your head right between your hands, and that's called a standing down dog. And then from there, I keep my hands exactly the same spot, I bring my hips forward, my head comes up, and now I'm into up dog. So now I just go back and forth, and this is a fantastic exercise for your posture. So I do this multiple times a day. If you want to vary it a little bit, you could put your hands high, you can put them a little lower. But also you can take your legs apart, turn your toes in, kind of wiggle your hips back and forth. This is great for your hips and your hamstrings. These are some simple posture exercises. And again, pay attention to your posture when you're sitting. Again, when I'm sitting right now, I can take my arms right back. It kind of resets my posture. But as time goes on, every one of us, we're going to fight the battle of gravity. And again, I don't want to let gravity beat me up too early. Again, I can fight back with my posture. So we're just being more intentional about it. And also, you can really tell as people age, especially when you look at blue zones where people aging the longest, a lot of people in the blue zones, their posture is what hits me right away, is how incredible their posture is. It's so good. So again, posture is a big deal. All right, so from here, we move into warming the body up. And this is your nervous system. So again, we need to get the body warmed up. So not just your muscles, everything, your nerve conduction, everything gets going. And this is called this is your dynamic warm up. And if you're not familiar with this is on the back of the Food Target. This is on our website. This is in my book. And again, this is a 2 to 3 minute warm up routine that, again, you're loosening up the body. I'm getting my arms going. I'm working my neck. I don't think we work the neck enough. So again, make a note to yourself. I need to stretch out my neck. I do lateral flexion. I do simple rotation, simple, easy things to my neck. I warm up my trunk. I twist. I do some leg swings. And then I finish up doing these things called hip openers. And I love hip openers. So if you have back issues out there, I put my hands on something to support. I bring my knee up. So I bend my knee, comes up. I rotate the knee with my leg bent out to the side, and then I straighten the leg right behind me all the way back. As I bring it back in, I rotate, bring the knee back up like I'm going over a fence, bring it back down to center, and all the way back down. So the knee goes up, knee goes out, straighten the leg back behind me, and I'll do that 3 or 4 times. And this loosens up your lower back and your hips because, again, these go right together. So that's my warm-up routine. I'll start out. Again, I'm paying my attention to my posture the whole time. I'll do a couple of those posture drills, do my dynamic warm-up, do my hip openers. And depending on how much time I have, I might do some restorative movements before my movement plan. So if I'm going to play pickleball or I'm going to go skiing or whatever, I'm going to spend a little more time getting my body loosened up. And these are called restorative movements. So again, we just start out posture. Number 2, we kind of got into the nervous system, warming the body up. That's your dynamic warm-up, along with the hip openers. And then we move into restorative movements. And this is an area we're not spending enough time in. And I got to tell you, this is not even on my radar screen 10, 15 years ago. It's all about my radar screen now. So these are in my book, page 230 to 234. This takes me about 5 to 10 minutes. And I do these almost every single day. And I'll just kind of start these out. What do? They restore my body, makes my body feel incredible. So if I feel like I'm aching, I have a tool to help me feel good. It's almost like getting a massage where my body feels really loose and feels great. It's almost putting Humpty Dumpty back together again. So make a little note here that we start out on the floor. So I get a pad and I work my fingers and my wrist and I'm working my hands and I'm doing like little circles. So I'm kneeling down. I'm kneeling on a pad or a mat or a pillow, but I'm kneeling. I still got 3 screws in my right knee from a patella rupture. I had a hard time doing this at the very beginning. Sometimes I use a foam roller behind me. But all you do is you kneel down. And I'm working my hands first, and I rotate those around, and then I work my feet. So this is a foot, my ankles, my toes. But I'm working my feet, and I'm working my hands, my wrist, all that together. And it's very gentle, so it's really relaxing, easy to do, and I kind of go back and forth. And I do that for a few minutes. And then from there, I move right into child's pose. So again, we're working the hips. We need to work the hips every day. So now I'm kneeling down. My knees are wider, and my heels or my feet are a little closer. And I generally do this bare feet or in socks. So again, it allows my feet to be more adaptive, works them a little bit more. So now all I do is I try to sink my hips as low as I can to the floor, my chest as low as I can to the floor, and I reach straight out in front of me. And I kind of wiggle back and forth with my hips, and I move my arms to the left, and I sink into my right. And this is called the quadratus lumborum in the lower back. And then I move my hands over to the other side. So this is a child's pose. And then from there, I have these yoga blocks. And I move right into a kneeling hip flexor. And again, we're still kind of moving the body. and I'm working a kneeling hip flexor and a hamstring exercise. So again, we have videos of this. But so now I'm hitting my hamstrings, my hip flexors starting to loosen up, my chest is up, squeeze my back glute tight. But now I'm working my hip flexor. And then I flip over my back, and now I bring out a foam roller. And I take that foam roller and I put it right at the base of my spine. So it's coming right across the curve of my back. And I put it long ways, sideways, where I'm just laying on it, my shoulders are on the ground. And all I do is I straighten out one leg. So again, my hips are supported by that foam roller. And I bring the knee in, and I do these things called hip circles. And I rotate right and left, and I do it both sides. But the foam roller gives me a little bit more space in my spine. It feels awesome. So if you have hip issues, back problems, this kind of loosens you up right away. And I'll do that both sides. Sometimes I'll do a little hamstrings. And then I take the foam roller and push it out to the side. I'm laying flat on my back. I bend my knees. My feet are on the ground. And I spread my feet apart and my knees apart. And just gently, I rock my knees side to side and I look the other way. So now I'm loosening up my hips, my back, my neck, and I go back and forth. And then I end with this thing called spinal decompression. This is one of the greatest things I learned from my physical therapist, Jill Marlin. As I lay on my back, I bend my knees, I take the butt of my hands, and I put it right at the base of my legs, and I push away. And what we're trying to do, and we're going to talk about this in a second, trying to create more space in my L4, L5, S1. So the base of my spine, I'm trying to create more space. As we age, we need more space in our lower back. So all I'm doing is I'm laying on my back, take the butt of my hands, straighten my arms right out, push my body, my abs are completely relaxed, and I basically push my legs away from my body. So I'm creating that space in my lower back. After I've loosened up and I finish up with this, it's incredible. If my back's bothering me a little bit, I'm tight from the XYZ, it creates that space. Everybody needs to create that space in the lower back. And again, it's an easy thing that you can do. Again, nothing, I love getting a massage regularly, but this is almost getting your own massage. So again, this is an easy thing to do. And then the last thing I'll mention here, sometime during the day, ideally I do this at night, but I'm laying my back on the bed. I work on my my core area. And all I'm doing is that kind of self-pressure massages for your organs. Because sometimes the organs get kind of bound up. We need to move them. It's great for digestion. But this is just a little restorative stuff for the core. So again, these are some things that you can do. And obviously, I'm a big fan of massage, and as I mentioned earlier. So that's my restorative movements. And I can't say enough about the big change in my world from a movement standpoint as I'm getting older, as I spend more time doing the restorative. And when I introduce this to my clients, it's shocking how some of their ailments go away. They're like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe how good I feel. All right, so now we're going to jump into cardio. And again, I'm going to make this easy. We could spend all day. I've done cardio 1 and 2 before. So again, if you haven't listened to those podcasts before, we go into the weeds about VO2 max and heart rate variability. And I'm going to make this much simpler. I just want to get your heart rate up. And the easiest way to do that is a talk test. If I slowly get out of breath, then I know I'm moving into energy systems. So I can use a heart monitor. I can do all that stuff. As simple as, are you getting a little out of breath? And that's the key and then what's your baseline? Do you have a baseline at all? Are you walking at all? So some people are like, I'm doing 10,000 steps a day. Great. Fantastic. But you don't necessarily need to do that. You can do other things to get that up there. So the big one is just that self-awareness. Are you getting your heart rate up, on a regular basis? Doesn't have to be long. Just, am I doing that? Can you climb a flight of stairs easily? Can you climb 1 or 2 flights? Could you climb 5 flights? That's a great indicator. Back in the day, I used to do training with people. I talked about this in the podcast. And they would tell me, hey, I'm doing the track, I'm running, I'm doing this and that. I said, okay, so let's have you climb these flight of stairs. At our health club, we have these flight of stairs. I want you to go up the flight, down the flight. I want you to do that 3 times. So, and we're not doing it super slow. We're doing it relatively fast. We're not running up the stairs, but we're doing it. It was shocking back to the self-awareness, like, wow, I don't have any of this anaerobic, jet fuel for doing some of this stuff. That's what I'm after. Just creating this baseline so you create a better capacity with that. As you think about this, I'm a big fan of walking. But instead of just doing walking all the time, do high knee walking for a minute. Do backwards walking. Backwards walking is a great thing for your knee extension. It's good for your balance, good for your feet. So again, feet are a big deal. But if you're not doing any of this stuff, just start walking. I'm going to start walking for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. You don't need to walk for 10,000 steps or 15,000 steps. Just start walking and start doing that. Also, big hiking. I like hiking because, again, hiking now I'm working a little bit more balanced. So, again, if you have a place that you can go hiking, I'm a big fan of that. Swimming, dancing, all this stuff. Love it. Mini trampoline. One of my favorite cardiovascular pieces of equipment would be getting yourself a mini trampoline. And I would recommend getting the nylon with the handles. We recommend Jump Sport. There's many of them out there. I'm a huge fan of the mini trampoline. Why? Because I can challenge myself from an intensity standpoint without hurting myself. Works my lymphatic system, works my connective tissue. We don't train enough our soft tissue. You know, back in the Olympics, they talked about soft tissue conditioning. That's a big deal. So what I mean by that is we need to train some of this soft tissue. I have calf issues, hamstrings issues. These are soft tissue issues that I can work on. So again, the mini trampoline can help you with some of that. So when you think about soft tissue conditioning, I want you to make a little note to yourself. Everybody listening to this podcast today, you need to continue to jump on a regular basis. Now, stop for a second here. What are you talking about, Chris? I'm talking about, can you jump? Can you skip? Can you just jump an inch or two? These are things that once you start doing them, can you jump rope? Now, we don't have to start there at the very beginning, but I have all my clients do this soft tissue conditioning and their calisthenics. And the soft tissue conditioning calisthenics, we start with this thing called skater. All I have them do is step to one side, step to the other side, but they're only on one leg. So again, depending on what their fitness level are, we start really slowly with that. Then I have them jump from one leg to two. So I'm standing on one leg, and I just gently jump to two. And then I'm back on one leg, and I jump to two. One leg up to two. So again, now I'm slowly introducing jumping. And then I do these things called 3/4 turns. And all I do is I jump slowly to the left. And again, you might step, won't even be a jump, and I come back to center. So I turn to the left, back to center. I do that 3 or 4 times, and then I go to the right side. So whatever fitness level you are, if you've never done this before, this is soft tissue conditioning, can raise your heart rate way up. These are things I sell to everybody because, again, no matter what fitness level you are, we can introduce these progressions and make them that you can start moving better. And last but not least, we do some frog hops, really simple, 2 legs to 2 legs. So I might not even barely get off the ground, but now we're introducing the soft tissue jumping exercises. And then I am a big fan of getting your heart rate during play. It's amazing when we play paddleball that how your heart rate's way up, but you don't recognize it because you're having fun. And I'm really a big fan of that. So again, I like playing as another way to get my heart rate up. And then when you think about this is, again, back to the intensity, use the talk test. It's an easy thing to do. You don't have to get crazy with this. But as time goes on, I want you to be more aware of your heart. So what's your resting heart rate? You know, is it 60? Is it 70? Is it 50? Whatever. Is it 45? Whatever it might be. But as your fitness level improves, your resting heart rate will fall. And again, we talked about these in our cardio sections, but I don't really worry about you getting in a certain heart rate zone right now. We just need to get you moving and get your heart rate up a little bit. But as I mentioned before, the key is incremental progressions. So again, start out with just a little bit, slowly move up. And then the other piece we're going to talk a little bit about right now is strength training. You've heard me say this 100 times if you ever listen to our podcast, but strength training is the fountain of youth. If you're 50 and older and you're listening to this today, or maybe anybody, you need to strength train. Strength training is that fountain of youth. If you want to move better, you want to feel better, you have a better metabolic engine. Again, we're talking about Ozempic and all these things. They decrease your engine. We want to increase your engine. So that's where strength training comes in. And no matter if you're a beginner or advanced or wherever you're at, everything is a progression. Everything's an adaptation. So you don't have to get crazy with this at all. You just need to start thinking about this. And the 3 R's of strength training is range. What's the range look like? The rate, that's the speed. We just talked a little bit about that, strength training with your feet and doing these jumping type things. And last but not least is resistance. Don't worry about your resistance right now. Work on your form, work on your range. We can start making it a little slower. That's your rate, or faster. And then start thinking about using most of your body weight. My brother and I were talking about this yesterday, but a lot of strength training for lower body, you really don't need any resistance besides your body weight, even upper body. Like I said, we're talking about hangs or doing the monkey bars. And then the last piece here is you need to have a place and a time. Where are you going to do this? And when are you going to do it? The more you can figure those two pieces out, the more apt you're going to start doing it. So again, where am I going to move my body today? Where is it going to be? When am I going to do it? And if you can create a place and a time, again, then you're going to be more apt to follow through with what you're doing. So from a strength training standpoint, if you're a beginner, I would recommend 2 lower body exercises and 2 upper body. This will not take you long at all. It could be as simple as a counterbalance body weight squat. So I have a chair. I sink into the chair. I'm doing a body weight squat. I could do some type of lateral lunge. I'm actually put my hands on a bench or a chair or something stationary, and I just laterally go side to side. Those are 2 simple lower body exercises. Upper body exercises, we start with a push-up. Could be against the wall, could be on a bench, could be a modified on the floor. So push-ups are really critical for your core, your upper body, and last but not least is some type of row, some type of maybe standing row. I could do it with a band or a cable, but those are 2 simple exercises for your upper body and 2 simple ones for your lower body. That would be more of a beginner. All right, so now we're going to dive into a little bit more detailed and lower body. So if you're making notes here, I'm a huge fan of squatting. Squats are fantastic. We all have to squat. We all have to get on the toilet. But I'm a huge fan of counterbalance squat. What do I mean by that? You could get a stick, and all I do is I squat down, and the stick goes out in front of me, puts my body in a great position. As I stand up, I row. So again, I can work on my range. I can work on my speed. I don't recommend putting a bar on your back for anybody, especially as we get older. So I am not a fan of putting a barbell on your back. It's going to make your space in your spine. It's going to affect your neck. It's going to affect your shoulders. Again, some of you out there are like, okay, this guy's lost it. No, as we age, I don't want the shrinking in my spine. If I want to load myself, I can load with kettlebells or dumbbells or whatever. But for many people, I can do wall squats. I can do counterbalance squats. I can do basically squats with hardly any weight. But as I age, I don't want to decrease that space. So again, I'm a big fan of squatter. I'm a big fan of some type of lunge or step back. So as I do, and you can make this really simple. I could do a step back, or I could do a lateral lunge or a step up. So some type of lunging type movements are part of my plan. I can do a wall lunge. There's lots of options. We have videos of this stuff. And then from there, I'm going to do that lateral lunge I talked about, which works your hips, your back. These are easy to do. And ideally, I put my butt against the wall. And I can put my arms out to the side, or if I want support, I can put a bench there or a table or whatever, and I just laterally go side to side. So I'm just lunging to the right and left. I'm also a big fan of using tubes around the ankle, so I can do like monster walks. I can go side to side. Now I'm getting a little bit more functional how the body moves. And then some type of hip extensions. We don't do enough hip extensions. So what is a hip extension? Well, an easy one to do this is you lay on your back and put your feet up on some type of elevated bench or chair or something that's elevated. So your heels are there, your rear end, and you're laying on your back. Bend your knees, and you elevate your hips up. That's a hip extension. So now it's working my hips, it's working my rear end, it's working my lower back, hamstrings. Huge fan of hip extensions. So that's an easy way to really create that hip extension. And again, it's going to feel good to you. And then last but not least, I do some type of standing calf raise. So all I do is I just stand, no weights, and all I do is I go up as far as I can with my arms overhead, and I go up on my toes, and I try to hold it for maybe a second or two. So now I'm working my toes, my feet, not loading my spine, just going up. Allows me to move better, but I'm also working on my balance. So those are just some simple, easy lower body exercises. But again, get back to the basics. Am I squatting? Am I lunging or doing a step up? Lateral lunges, hip extensions. Those are simple things to do. And then upper body, I can't say this enough about push-ups. Everybody can do a push-up. Again, it could be a wall push-up. It could be a modified push-up. But we also want to scapular retract. When the shoulder blades come together, you create more space in the shoulders, which creates more space, again, in that the shoulder area that keeps that shoulder healthy and vibrant. So again, push-ups, you don't ever have to do a plank again. If I'm doing a push-up correctly, planks, I don't have to do a plank ever again. Also, I'm a big fan of using dumbbells. I could do a dumbbell bench press, a fly, but I lay on my back with dumbbells, scapular retract again. Again, I like the dumbbells because we're working on balance. Washes the brain. Feet are up in the air. Some type of row. Could be a standing cable row. Could be a standing tube row, but I really like standing rows. If I don't have that, then I could do a dumbbell row. I can assist myself on a bench. Also, I'm a big fan of lat pull-downs or pull-ups. If you're doing a lat pull-down, always goes in front. Elbows go straight down. Chest comes up. Full movement all the way up, all the way down. Fantastic for your core, great for your back. Again, not behind the head. These are easy things to do. And again, that could eventually maybe move you into a pull-up if that's what you wanted to do. That's a goal. The goal for me is I want to continue to be doing pull-ups as I get older, but I want to do it healthy as we go down that path. All right, so from here, just a couple more. I love shoulder presses, and I like them standing. I never do them seated. Again, you can do them seated, but it's going to decrease the space in my spine. And you start out really easy. You could do it with a band. You could do it with dumbbells. But all I'm doing is trying to work on my posture and my core with a full extension. Now, if you have a lot of shoulder issues, we might be staying away from that. But if you do not, I'm a huge fan of doing a standing shoulder press. Also, I'm a big fan of working your shoulders straight out to the side with good posture. So I'm just doing a side raise, really lightweight, and I like a reverse fly, so now I'm working my whole, basically shoulder girdle the whole time. So again, easy things to do. Biceps and triceps. I think biceps and triceps can be really beneficial for posture with scapular retraction, good, really working on my posture. And it keeps that whole kinetic chain strong. I work my forearms, wrist extensions, all that kind of stuff, putting that all together. But that keeps that entire chain strong. So again, these are just some really simple, basic upper body exercises. And then you can mix this up. So maybe one day I do lower body and one day I do upper body. So again, we did some podcasts on strength training, 2 episodes, if you want to get in a little bit more into the weeds. But as we age, I think people start to make this too hard. Get rid of the bars. Again, if I'm doing a shoulder press, if I'm doing a bench press, I don't want to do bench presses with bar ever again. I don't want to do bench press or squats with a bar. All it's going to do is decrease my mobility and kind of affect all the stuff that I'm trying to improve upon. So again, those are just my opinion, but doing this 100 years, that's what I've learned over the years that, hey, we don't need that. And then last but not least here is training your core. Think about this for a minute. You want to train your core multiple ways. So I might start out with people just flat on their back, doing some really simple core exercise. We have this thing called up and over. We do a crossover. So I'm laying on my back. Again, we have these videos on our website. This is in my book. But real simple, we start there. Or maybe if I'm working my back, I might be laying on a bench or a Swiss ball and I'm doing some back extensions. So that's where you begin with core. You make it so simple. And then eventually, as time goes on, I'm going to get a little more dynamic. So maybe I'm going to do some standing movements. I might be standing with a medicine ball. I'm doing twists. I'm doing chops. I might do a standing cable. I'm a huge fan of standing cables because, again, works that whole entire kinetic chain. So now I'm working the core completely differently. And then maybe we move to the floor, and I'm a big fan of like spiders and starfish. These are things all you're doing on the floor, more like a gymnastics type movement. But think about your floor, and then you can do hangs. I mean, I'm doing hangs. I got people that have good grip strength. I might do some core while they're hanging. And then the Swiss ball is one of my favorites because Swiss ball, you can do so many things no matter what fitness level you are. So when you're training your core, just start out basic. And eventually you want to bring some of this fun component to it, but I'm not doing the same crunches and same stuff all the time. I'm always mixing this up a little bit. So again, that's some simple ways to work your floor and the pelvic floor with your core. All right, so as I wrap this up, again, lots of information today. I just want you to think a little bit differently as we age and how we move. But some big 50,000-foot views I just want to hit before we summarize this is that we need to think about our lifestyle. And a big part of you're trying to get better results is you need restorative rest. And you need to make sure you're having proper fuel. That's the eat. So again, you've heard this before, maybe you haven't, but are you doing your daily breath work? And if you're not, make this simple. I breathe through my nose, I use my diaphragm or my belly, and I slow it down. 4 or 5 second inhalation, 6 to 8 second exhalation, many different ways to breathe. Breathing through the nose, great way to reset, calm the mind, relax the body, reset the nervous system. Are you getting 8 hours of sleep? Maybe we're not always getting 8 hours, but if I'm intentionally trying to get in bed and I'm in bed for 8, 9, 10 hours, that's my goal. But if I'm getting in bed for 6 hours, obviously that's not where we want to be. So take a look at your sleep. Are you doing any planned recovery? I try to get a massage at least twice a month. I actually took an Epsom salt bath yesterday. I have an infrared sauna up in our place in northern Michigan. Do you have time away to recharge your batteries? We need to make sure we're doing some of that restorative movements and to help the body recover. And then on the eating side, are you drinking at least 50 ounces of water every day? That's your minimum. Are you eating more whole foods? Again, holidays are coming. Back to the source. Are you eating closer to the center of the food target? So if you're not familiar with the food target, go to our website. Click on this under the downloads. An easy thing to do. All you're trying to do is upgrade what you're eating. And then real specifically, are you consuming omega-3 and omega-6 fats? Omega-3 fats is the cod liver oil, the flax. The omega-6 fats is the pumpkin seeds, Brazil nuts. Many people are not getting the omega-3 and the healthy omega-6 fats. Vitamins D, cod liver oil is one of your high sources of vitamin D. Vitamin C, are you eating fruit? And B vitamins, again, it could be lots of different things, including your ancient grains like oatmeal or teff or amaranth. Animal protein, plant protein, and are you fasting overnight, which is 12 to 14 hours? Those are just some big high-level things to think about as we kind of wrap this up. All right, so as we summarize this, home stretch here. If you're making little notes, I got 5 of them. Number 1, be intentional about your posture. Every day, do those wall posture movements. Standing against the wall, back against the wall, face the wall. Again, you raise the arms overhead, and then you go right into your up dog, down dog. That's a great exercise to keep that shoulder and your back in a good spot. So again, posture, just be aware of it. Be more intentional about it. Again, feel like your chest is up. You're being lifted up. Your head's up. Posture is a big deal, especially as we age. Number 2, we have to have some type of warm-up and restorative movements. Are you taking the time to warm up your body? I see this many times when I see people playing pickleball or paddleball. They just run in, hit the ball a couple times, away they go. They've never really got their nervous system warmed up. So that's the dynamic warm-up. That's the hip openers. And maybe if you want to spend a little more time, that's the restorative stuff. We're working on the hands and the feet, the hip flexors, the hamstrings, the lower back with the foam roller, the circles, the lying side to side, rocking the legs, and then that spinal decompression. So that's number 2. Are you bringing that to the party? And as we age, we need to bring more of this to the party. And number 3, get your heart rate elevated. It does not have to be super intense. We talked about soft tissue conditioning. It's a great way to get my heart rate up, but I'm also doing the soft tissue conditioning. That's the jumping regularly. That's the calisthenics. Maybe that's the mini trampoline. Maybe you're just starting to skip a little bit. Or maybe, which I'm going to start working on more, is jump rope. I'm kind of inspired by some of the people that I know that are jumping rope. And I'm thinking, I'm not very good at that. And then we talk a little bit about strength training as your fountain of youth, the bodyweight squat, step-ups, step backs, rows, hangs, core. Again, we want to continue to think about that fountain of youth. Are you strength training? Are you being smart about it? Let's get rid of that bar on your back if you're squatting with a bar on your back, or if you're doing bench press with a bar. Get rid of that. You don't need that. So again, that's the things that beat up the body. And again, training your core in a variety of different movements. And last but not least here, we need to find an activity we love, enjoy, play, and fun. So again, it could be pickleball, paddleball, skiing, hiking, whatever you love to do. If you want to play better golf, then train for golf. That's inspiring to people. Like, yeah, my back doesn't hurt me as much anymore, and I hit the ball better, and the list goes on. Whatever it is, you're training for life, but we want to create that enjoyment. I can't say this enough. We want to create that enjoyment. All right, so as I summarize here, so those are the 5: posture, warm-up, restorative. 3 is cardio, 4 strength training, and last but not least, play and fun. So here's a couple final things for you. Value your greatest asset, and that greatest asset is your health. Now is the time. Why not? Decide. You need to decide. The goal is to slowly develop a consistent movement plan, and you do that one brick at a time. I can't say this enough. Just develop a plan. Don't get crazy with it. Remember, place in a time. Listen to your body. I'm not 25 anymore. I have to look at my training completely differently than when I was in the early 80s. Okay, so my training is completely differently. Did I do squats with a bar on my back? Absolutely. Did I do bench press? Yes. Was I warming my body up? No. The list goes on and on. I'm completely changed how I train myself. And again, I'm hopefully learning over time. You make mistakes, that's good. But give yourself some grace. I truly believe as we age, we need to give ourselves a little bit of grace. But motion creates positive emotion, and one of the greatest things you can do with your body on a regular basis is to move that. So here's to a lifetime of movement. We'll see you next time.